In this video, I have put together 3 of my most powerful trainings on how to create wealth. In fact, if you take action on all 3 of these trainings back to back to back, it becomes a powerful wealth formula. All right, so here's what you need to do. Grab a pen, grab a paper, get ready to take notes, and let's jump in. This one little known skill is something that 100% of millionaires have in common, no matter what market, no matter what niche, no matter what industry. All millionaires have this one little known skill in common. And the crazy part is most of them never talk about it at all. Imagine how powerful it could be if you knew this skill and began to apply it to your own life. We're talking all about it today in the video. There's one thing that changed in mine and my wife's life before we became millionaires, and you know what it was? It was our mindset, okay? Every single millionaire that I know, they all have at least one thing in common, and that thing is this. They've got to get their thinking correct when it comes to money, and even when it comes to the desire and the expectation of wanting to be a millionaire, right? So check this out. There's a scripture, Romans chapter 12, verse 2. I like what the NLT version says. It says it like this: let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Now, I want to see at least 5-10 people in the comments. If you want to be transformed, what needs to change? We just read it right here in Romans. What needs to change first if you want to see a transformation, right? Mindset, right? And why is the mindset so important when it comes to every aspect of our life in today's context, specifically in the place of growing as a person that is worthy of receiving and earning millions of dollars, right? Because I always tell my students this, guys, it's less about the $1 million and it's more about becoming the person it takes to know how to generate $1 million, okay? But none of this is going to happen if you don't change your mindset. Come with me here to the board. Let's check this out. Watch this. Why are our thoughts so important? Because if you sow a thought, you'll reap an action. If you sow an action, you'll reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you will reap, you will reap a character, and if you sow a character, you will reap a destiny. But look where all of this starts, okay? Watch where all of this starts. If you want to fulfill your God-given destiny, and in the context of what we're talking about today, in building wealth for you and your family, guess what has to happen first? Your mindset has got to change. If you sow a thought, you'll reap an action. If you sow an action, you'll reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you'll reap a character. And if you sow a character, you will reap a destiny. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down, okay? Every thought is a seed that grows in the garden of your reality. Every thought is a seed that grows in the garden of your reality. I want to submit something to you. If you don't allow yourself to have the desire to become a millionaire, chances are you won't become one, right? Like so many of us have been brainwashed by culture. We've been brainwashed by the school system. We've been brainwashed by maybe by your family, maybe by the church that you grew up in, right? It's just all around us to be brainwashed with this idea like, oh, we don't want to go for too much. We just want to have just enough. We just want to be comfortable, right? In my opinion, one of the most selfish things that somebody can want is just enough to be comfortable. Why? Because if all you want is just enough to be comfortable in your finances, guess what? You can't take care of anyone else, right? If you just have enough for me and mine, how are you going to build that orphanage? How are you going to buy that person's groceries? How are you going to give? How are you going to bless somebody? How are you going to help those in need, right? Well, I just want just enough. Like, if we put that mindset, that false limiting belief against what I'm about to say, it really starts sounding very silly. What if I were to ask you, like, how healthy would you like your kids to be, right? Would you answer like, well, just healthy enough. We don't want them to be mega healthy, just healthy enough, right? How thriving would you like your marriage to be? Well, just thriving enough. I don't want my marriage to be too good. I just want it to be good enough, right? How healthy would you like to be? Well, not too healthy, just enough healthy. Like, this is the mindset. And then, so why do we say that when it comes to our finances, when it comes to our desire to want to change not only our lives, but our children's lives and our children's children's lives? I'll tell you this, before my wife and I became millionaires and multimillionaires, something changed in us. And you know what that was? A desire to be a millionaire, right? Like, we had to come to grips with the idea, like, this isn't wrong. Like, obviously money is not the most important thing, but it's one of the most important things. I love talking to people who always say like, oh, money's not important. Really now? If money is not important, then why do you go to a job for 40 to 50 hours a week, 5 to 6 days per week for 40 years to try to make a little bit of money? Well, it's not that important. Okay, then why are you spending your whole entire life trying to get some, right? We have to change our thoughts, guys. We have to change our mentality when it comes to, I desire to become a millionaire, or maybe your desire is to become a multimillionaire, so that not only my life can change, but I can help change other people's life. If you're taking notes, write this down. Many people think that they need a financial breakthrough, but really what they need is a mindset breakthrough. Like, think about it. Like, you can't expect to have a millionaire bank account until you first develop a millionaire mindset. You've got to become wealthy in your mind long before you become wealthy in your bank account. It all begins. Romans chapter 12 just told us this. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. You've got to change your thoughts when it comes to, I desire to be a millionaire. I desire to be a multimillionaire, right? You have to allow yourself to go there and understand this is not a bad thing. This is actually going to be a good thing, okay? Let me ask you this question. Are you thinking and acting like a broke person? Or are you thinking and acting like a wealthy person? How do broke people act? Well, broke people, they have broke conversations. They say things like, man, I'll never be able to, that's so expensive. You paid what? Oh my gosh, that's too much. Right? Those are broke conversations. I actually refuse to have broke conversations in my life. To be involved in any conversation that is, it's too much, I can't afford it, that place is so expensive, that thing is too much, I'll never be able to afford it, I'll never be able to do this, oh my gosh, my whole paycheck was given to this thing. I refuse, because a lot of the times, the conversations that we're having, the same way that your thoughts are seeds that are sown into your future, your words are also seeds that you sow into your future. So I don't want to be like, I can't afford that. A better way to see that statement is not, I can't afford that. Change your thought pattern, change your mentality, change your language to, how can I afford this, right? When you begin to make these slight adjustments in your mindset, everything begins to change. Now, again, you may not be able to physically afford it yet in your reality, but the reason why I said you have to become a millionaire in your mindset before you see millions in your bank account, the reason why I said that is because you've got to start thinking like a wealthy person before you can actually touch that paper, man, right? You've got to change your mentality. So that's my question to you. Are you thinking, are you acting, are you talking like a broke person? Or are you thinking, acting, and talking like a wealthy person? Okay, let's go back to the board here. I'm gonna give you guys and gals a few contrasts between how broke people think, scarcity mindset people think, right? How struggling people think, and how wealthy people think. Let's come back here to the board, okay? So let's look at these differences. See if I can fit it all here, okay? So here's how broke people think, okay? And you definitely do not want this. And here is how wealthy people think. And you absolutely want to think like this, okay? You guys ready? Take notes. Hopefully if you have a pen and paper, please write this stuff down, okay? Number one. Broke people have a scarcity mindset. You know what a scarcity mindset is? A scarcity mindset is a mindset that would rather hold on tight because you don't know if you're going to have enough, right? Oh, I don't want to do this. Like, what if there's not enough tomorrow, right? You want to break out of the scarcity mindset, because here's the thing. Come back to the board here. Broke people have a scarcity mindset, but wealthy people have an abundance mindset. Hey, I really hope that you're enjoying the video. I want to invite you guys. I have recently created a free training teaching people how to make money online. My students are literally making anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a month, and some of them even make hundreds of thousands of dollars, not in a year, but in a single day. If you want more information on how you can get started, all you need is a phone and a laptop. You can go to digitalproductacademy.org, or you can click the link below in the description. Guys, after you watch the free training, if it sounds like it might be something cool for you to check out, you can book a free call with one of my client success coaches, and they'll be able to help you more. Now, back to the video. You know what an abundance mindset is? An abundance mindset is this. I believe that there is more than enough for you to have more than enough, for me to have more than enough, and when you have more than enough and I have more than enough, there's still more than enough left over. That's the abundant mentality. That's how wealthy people think. Wealthy people aren't going, ooh, I don't want to do that. Well, what if we don't have enough tomorrow? You got to change your mindset, man. Now watch this, okay? Number two. Broke people work hard for their money. Okay, but wealthy people have their money, you guessed it, work hard for them. This concept right here is absolutely radical in the potential that it has to change your life. Like, so many people are still in the grind of trying to trade their time for their dollars, right? They think the way to build wealth is to work harder, to work longer hours, right? But God has instituted a way to where he says, look, I've created a better way for you to make money. And that's what we're going to talk about here in just a minute. I'm trying not to jump ahead. But wealthy people, instead of them working hard for their money, guess what wealthy people do? Wealthy people get their money working hard for them. What does that mean? It means you can start using your money. If you're taking notes, write this down. You can't use your money like a fool. You got to use your money as a tool. Wealthy people are going to invest. Wealthy people are going to put back into their business. Wealthy people are going to invest in themselves, right? They're going to purchase coaches and mentorships and programs. They're going to level their skills up, right? They're going to get their money working for them. You're never going to be able to get ahead. You're never going to be able to become that millionaire person if you're always trying to chase that dollar, working hard for your dollar, right? Let's go back to the board, number 3, okay? This one is really important. Broke people look for all the hard ways to make a little bit of money, but wealthy people look for all the easy ways to make a lot of money. A prime example of this for me in my journey, you may or may not know, but for years, my business was stuck at like $50,000 to $70,000 a month. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to break free from that. And you might be listening today going, $50,000 a month, that would be a dream. But here's the thing. unless you have an actual business, you don't understand $50,000 a month is really not that much when you have a staff, you have a building, you've got overhead, you've got expenses, you've got marketing, you've got taxes, you've got insurance, right? Like, really what we needed $50,000 a month every single month just to break even, right? This was like 6 years ago in my business. We needed $50,000 a month just to break even. And honestly, I didn't know how to get out of the rat race, out of the hamster wheel of let's keep trying to sell. And here's the punchline. I was selling my core product at the time was $27. So the math is, in order for me to make $50,000 just to float my business, not even to make a profit, just to make sure we don't go under that month, I needed to sell $1,827 products. Now, if that's not a nightmare, I don't know what is, right? Like, and I was looking for all of the hard ways to make a little bit of money. Maybe we can launch a new thing. Maybe we can do this. Maybe I'll lower the price. Maybe more people will buy, and if it's 27, let's sell it for $1. And I literally, at times, I would put the thing on sale for $1. My wife was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, we're barely making it at the $27 price point. Why are you trying to sell it for $1, right? And I was looking for all the hard ways to make a little bit of money, but something changed. I put together a premium value offer, okay? And in my premium value offer, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna sell this premium value offer for $5,000. That was the biggest number I could ever imagine at that moment, right? I want to sell for $5,000. And I was so scared. I knew that the transformation people could receive in that product was incredible. But for me, I didn't know if anyone was going to buy it, right? I put that product out, my premium value offer, I put it out there. And in one day, we made $400,000 in one single day. And it was at that moment that I began to understand that it's easier to make a lot of money in a short amount of time than it is to make a little bit of money over a long period of time. Okay, so that scarcity broke mentality is looking for all the hard ways to make a little bit of money. What are some ways that you can begin to think in a wealthy pattern to say, what are the easy ways that we can make a bunch of money? You got to start elevating your mindset there, okay? Here we go, number 4. Broke people, here we go. Broke people make money with their time. This is the one I was trying not to get ahead on earlier. But wealthy people make money with their creativity. You may have heard me talk about this before, but it's absolutely true, okay? As long as your earning potential is connected to something that is limited, like time, okay? Or as long as your earning potential is connected to something that's limited, like your effort, like your energy, right? So now you're using your effort and your energy and your time to try to make money. Effort and energy are limited. Time is limited. So guess what else becomes limited? Your earning potential, right? But creativity, when you connect your earning potential to your creativity, which is unlimited, guess what also happens? Your earning potential now becomes unlimited, right? This is how I am able to make money while I sleep. This is how my students are able to make money while they sleep, because they're using their creativity, and in our case, to create digital products where they do the work one time, and instead of in the old model of I'm using my time and my effort to try to build wealth, that's going to take you literally your whole life, right? And if you do achieve wealth using that model, you're going to be too old at the end of your life to even enjoy it, right? But the way that my students and I are able to create wealth even while we sleep is with a digital product. You do the work one time and it pays you over and over and over and over again, right? We're connecting our earning to our creativity, not to our time and effort, right? So in our case, whenever you have your earning potential connected to your creativity, now all you got to do is just come up with another creative idea, and that can double up on your last creative idea. And guess what happens? Now your money doubles. And then if you want to make a little bit more money, you have another creative idea, or in our case, we come up with another creative digital product and we stack it on top of the last one. And this thing begins to compound at levels that you could never even imagine, right? So guys, I'm telling you, you've got to elevate your mindset when it comes to, are you thinking, acting, and speaking like a broke person, or are you thinking, acting, and speaking like a wealthy person? And watch this, okay? So with all of this being said, okay, now we're learning, okay, we've got to start thinking differently. We've got to start speaking differently. We've got to stop having broke conversations, and we need to start elevating our mindset. We want to be transformed in our finances. Then the way that that's going to happen is we have to allow God to transform us by changing the way we think when it comes to wealth, money, finances, and in our case, in this context of the training today, in becoming a millionaire, okay? So now that we have established this foundation, I want to break down 3 more thoughts for you, because there are 3 different kinds of money mindsets, okay? And I want to challenge you as you begin to go through this next portion here, which one are you in? Let's come back to the board. So there are 3 kinds of money mindsets, okay? The first person, this is what I call, a debtor, okay? The second kind of person is called a saver, and the third kind of person is called a wealth creator. Okay? Now, how do all 3 of these mindsets work? A debtor is somebody who is in massive consumer debt. Now, if you didn't know, there are different kinds of debt. Okay? There is good debt, and then there is bad debt. I know there are camps out there that say all debt is bad. I personally don't believe that at all, simply because I have some debt that is making me money. See, the difference is bad debt costs you money, and good debt makes you money. In fact, almost every single wealthy person I know, almost every single millionaire that I know, myself included, we use debt to leverage and to create wealth. For instance, here's just a very simple example, okay? So let's say bad debt, you're using credit cards or whatever to go buy like shoes or Taco Bell or Starbucks, right? And you're putting it on credit because you don't have that money. And so you're not just paying once for that consumer item, you're paying twice and sometimes even more. How are you paying twice? Well, you pay whenever you first purchase with the card, but then you pay in interest. And sometimes if you don't pay the card, if you don't get out of debt, that interest starts accumulating over and over, and you start having a negative snowball of debt that is literally costing you a ton of money, right? That's bad debt. Good debt is, if I borrow, let's just use a round number, if I borrow, let's say $100,000 for my business, and it's going to cost me 5% of interest, right? Maybe the loan is a 5% loan for my business, but I can use this money, I can leverage this money, and I can go out and this money, I can invest it to where it's going to make me 10% or 12% or 15%. Yes, though it costs me 5% interest, I am actually making an extra 10% or 15 or whatever the number is profit just by leveraging. That's the difference between bad debt and good debt, okay? Now, the first person in our example here, okay, they're the debtor mindset. This is a person who has crazy consumer debt, right? And all they're trying to do is just get out of debt. Man, if we could just get out of debt, it would be so amazing. Well, I have news for you. If you're taking notes, write this down, or maybe you want to drop it in the comments, okay? Debt-free is still zero. Think about that. Take me back here to the board, Rome. Check this out. You know, you're like drowning in all this consumer debt. Well, finally, if you get back to debt-free, guess where you're just getting? You're getting back to zero. I'm debt-free, woohoo! You know, there are people on the internet who do like a debt-free scream, we're debt-free! And I'm like, why are you screaming that you're at zero? Like, yes, I get it. You came out of like the negative. We're debt free, woohoo! Like, okay, welcome to zero, right? So that's the first kind of person. That's the debt mindset. You do not want to have this kind of mindset, right? You do not want to be this kind of person who's just drowning in consumer debt that is just costing you money in interest every single week, every single month, right? The second kind of person, okay? This is a saver mindset, okay? What's the saver mindset? The saver mindset is, I'm gonna live debt-free, okay? I am going to use my job to create income so that I can stay out of debt and pay my bills, okay? And by the way, the mindsets here, the debtor mindset, they think that money is to get out of debt. The saver mindset is they believe that money is to stay out of debt, to pay bills, and then you guess it, to try to save my way to wealth. Can I submit something to you? There is an industry here in the great nation of America called the Federal Reserve Bank, okay? Now the Federal Reserve Bank, they're not federal, they're not a reserve, and they're not a bank. You and I can't go into them and make a deposit or make a withdrawal. They're just a company that what they do is they print money. They just print money, and here's the crazy part. The more money they print, yes, they're dumping more paper into the economy, but they're not printing more wealth, right? And in fact, the more money that they just keep printing and printing and printing, the more they print that money, the more the value of our dollar goes down. So guess what happens? Every single day that a saver is like, I'm gonna save my way to wealth. Well, that was probably good in the 50s and 60s, right? Before people just start printing off money like bananas. But now there's inflation, and as long as your money is just sitting in a bank account, just being saved there, well, I'm debt free and I pay my bills on time, that's good. Those are good. But then I'm saving my way to wealth. You're never going to be able to save your way to wealth, because every day that your money sits in a savings account, it is literally declining in value. And this is a lot of where our parents' generation, where they're still trying to operate at, you know, they're still under the go to school so you can go to college, you can get a good job so that you can pay for school and stay in this cycle and work really hard for 40 or 50 years. And hopefully one day, if you saved enough, you'll be able to retire whenever you're 65 or 70 years old. I don't know about you. I am trying to retire when I'm 70 or 80 years old. Like, we had a precious grandmother jump on one of our coaching calls the other day, and she wanted to figure out how to get financially free because she was still trying to pay off her student loans. Like, I know that we've all been warned about the get rich quick schemes, but how come no one ever warned us about the stay broke your whole entire life scheme? Right? So here's what you don't want to be. You don't want to be a debtor. Okay, you don't want to be in terrible, bad consumer debt. You don't want to just be a saver, even though that's better than being a debtor. You want to be a wealth creator. Let's talk about this, okay? Wealth creators, these are people who start businesses. These are people who create digital products that can make them money even while they sleep. These are people who are willing to look at the risk of taking on some debt for their business, right? Understanding that, okay, it might cost me 5 or 6%, but if I can use this money and go out there and turn it into 10%, then I'm actually ahead by 4 or 5%. So I'm making money by borrowing other people's money, right? And the fastest way to begin to create wealth, now that we've understood the context of we got to think different, now that we've understood the context of the difference between a broke mindset and an abundance mindset, now that we understand this, we also need to understand that if we want to get to the place of wealth as fast as humanly possible, we really should be like the wealth creator with a wealth creation mindset that says, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to create some digital assets, which in mine and your case, those are digital products. And I am going to, when it's appropriate, I am going to look to see if I can leverage OPM, which stands for other people's money, right? Or even OPS, other people's stages, right? I'm going to look to see where I can leverage other people's resources. Though it would cost me a little up front, it will make me more if I use this other person's resource, if I use it wisely, right? So I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a debtor. I don't want to be a saver. I want to be a wealth creator. And all of this begins with one thought, because if you sow a thought, you reap an action. If you sow an action, you'll reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you'll reap a character. And if you sow a character, you will reap a destiny. It all begins in the mind. And we've really got to get a grip on this millionaire mindset mastery, because honestly, it's way more about becoming the millionaire than making the millions. Are you someone who would like to become wealthy, but you just don't know how to do it? I submit to you that building wealth has less to do with the how of building wealth, and it has more to do with your perception of how wealth is actually created. In today's training, I'm going to be sharing with you the path to prosperity. Come with me here to the board and we're going to dive right on in. Okay, so the question is, how do we get from where you are now, okay, don't know how to do it, from where you actually want to be in your prosperity journey, right? In fact, let's liven this up a little bit. This is where you want to be. This is time freedom and money freedom, right? So how do we go from here to here? Well, the answer is very simple. There is a path that anyone can take, and really, it's just 4 simple steps, okay? So I want to share with you, there's a scripture that I actually keep here on my phone, that it's actually just my placeholder here. And what it says is Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 3, it says, "The dream comes through much business." Okay? Do you have a dream to do what God has, put in your heart to do? Maybe you have a dream to build orphanages or to leave a legacy for your family. Or maybe you have a dream to finally be financially free, or to finally build the wealth and the lifestyle that you and your family deserve, but you just don't know how to get there. Friends, I'm telling you right now, the path to go from where you are to where you want to be, I believe, can be found in the scripture here through business, right? The dream comes through much business. If you got a dream and you want to fulfill it, all you have to do is create some kind of business that can fund the dream. Like, it's literally this simple, right? Come back here with me to the board as we dive into what are these 4 steps that anyone can take in business to go from where you are to where you want to be in your prosperity journey. Let's check it out, okay? So these 4 levels here, guys, I'm going to break this down into 4 different levels. This one here, okay, level 1. This is the wantrepreneur, okay? You ever heard the word or the phrase entrepreneur? Well, the first step that you've got to take is the wantrepreneur step, okay? And this is a step that's going to take you from $0. And this is a step that anyone can take to get to their first 100K in business, okay? So I'm telling you right now, anyone can do what I'm about to break down in this first step, but it really comes down to, like I said earlier, you've got to begin to change your perception of how is wealth actually created, okay? A lot of people think that wealth is created by going to a job, right? Trading their time for dollars. Like, man, if I just work harder, I can, make more money if I just pick up a couple extra hours on overtime, right? And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but I'm telling you right now, the slow way, and I'm talking very, very slow way to build wealth, is trading your time for dollars, right? But if you start tapping into these steps here, and even though it's at the beginning, it's the wantrepreneur, right? Who's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. If you can master these 3 simple action steps on the first stone of the path to success, you're going to be well on your way to really starting to create wealth, okay? So come with me and let's check it out. Okay, on this level, on this stone, this is the first step everyone's got to take. There are 3 things. Number 1, you've got to have an offer, okay? So what is an offer? An offer is a product or a service that solves a problem for your market, for your audience, right? So the best thing that I like to say to my students is the quickest way to choose your niche, or to pick your niche, or to find the market that you want to serve, is to simply talk to the people who you were just 5 years ago, right? Whoever you were like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, whoever you were at that time, struggling to finally learn what you do know now, all you have to do is start talking to those people. You went through the journey, you know the language, you know the struggles, you know exactly what's needed to get them from where they are then and where they are now in that part of their journey to where you could be, where they could be now, right? So you've got to pick your market, pick your niche, and come up with some kind of opportunity, again, a product or a service that can solve their problems. And I want to submit to you, don't just solve their problems quickly. If you can solve their problems quickly in your product or service, that's called your offer, okay? Then something tremendous is going to happen. You're going to start making money, okay? This is the first step everyone needs to take when it comes to, I want to build wealth, okay? You're going to get there very, very slowly at a job. You can get there much, much quicker by bringing on some of these business principles into your internal beliefs, okay? So that's the first thing on the first step, is you have to have an offer, a product or service that solves people's problems. What's step number 2 in this part, okay? Second thing you have to have in this phase, you have got to learn marketing, okay? Here's the thing, your offer, your product or service could be the most incredible product or service that solves people's problems the best that they've ever had that problem solved ever. But if no one knows that that product or service, that offer exists, then my friend, they will not be paying you anytime soon. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to begin to discover ways on how you can start telling your market, telling your audience about the good thing that God has put on the inside of you, and how that good thing can solve their problems, right? Like, for instance, the iPhone, okay? All of us had problems that we didn't even know existed of, man, if we could just get all the technology in one place, it would be so incredible. Because again, it's not just solving their problems, it's solving their problems quickly, right? And if we could quickly just have some kind of device that we could fax people, page people, call people, put our calendars in, like all the stuff that we used to do. What if we had it all in the same place and we could do it all in the blink of an eye? And guess what? Somebody came and solved that problem. And now all of us, whether you have an iPhone or not, you probably have a smartphone, all of us have paid to get that problem solved, right? But if none of us knew about, in this case, the iPhone, okay, how awesome it is and how much efficiency it could bring to our life, then we are going to like be still in the dark. Like, man, I wish there was a way that I could, do all of this stuff in the same place. The same thing goes for your offer, your product, your service. You've got to tell people about the good thing that God has put in you to help them with their problem, to help guide them in their journey, to bring quicker results so they don't have to go through all the pain that you went through. Okay, a lot of people, they for whatever reason, they get a little bit scared, they get a little bit shy or sheepish, like, well, I don't want to tell anybody about it. Like I'm whatever, maybe you're in health and fitness, or maybe you are in finance, maybe you are in the car industry, maybe you are a DIY Mega Man or whatever it is, right? Like whatever your thing is, like, well, I've done it for 20 years, or I'm really good at it, or I'm really passionate, but I don't want to tell anybody. Like, of course, no one's going to pay you if you don't tell them exactly how you can help their problem. So you've got to start getting the word out or marketing to your people. And then the last part of this stone in the path to success, you've got to learn sales, okay? Like, here's the thing. You could have the best product or service, the best offer, right? You can tell everybody about it, get everybody around, like, hey, if you guys have this problem, I can solve it by XYZ, right? I have this thing, I have this product, I have this service. Come on, guys, come over here, I can help you. And everyone gathers around, okay? But then if you don't know how to sell the thing to them, you're not going to get paid. right? So you've got to really get these three things on this stone in the path to success. You've got to get these three things going, because when you do, okay, when you can have a killer offer, okay, when you know how to tell people about the good thing that you can solve their problem with, and when you learn how to sell to them, guess what's going to happen? My friend, this is the fastest, most easiest way to get from 0 to 100K in your business. Now, I'm telling you right now, okay? I have students right now in some of my programs who didn't know anything about marketing, didn't know anything about sales, didn't know anything about putting together an offer, and literally now are making tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And before this, all they ever did was work at the job, man. All they ever did was trade their time for dollars. But I showed them, here's how to put together the offer, here's how to market, here's how to sell. And literally, single mothers are doing this now. We have farmers doing this. We have ministers are doing this. We have men and women from all walks of life serving all kinds of different markets who are getting their minds blown because they're like, wait a second, I literally am making tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And friends, I'm telling you right now, if you can just get these three things together, you are going to go from 0 to 100K like this. I've seen it in my own life back in the day when I was starting business. I've seen it in my students' lives. If it happened for me, if it happened for them, it can absolutely happen for you as well. And this is what every aspiring entrepreneur, I call them wantrepreneurs, right? Someone is like, man, I would love to start a business. I would love to start a side hustle. I would love to get that extra stream of income. This is what you need to do on this stone in the path to success, okay? You want to go from 0 to 100K as fast as humanly possible? Well, way faster than trading your time for dollars at your job. If you put together some kind of product or service that solves a problem, gather people, tell them about the good thing, and then sell the good thing to them, you're going to get there extremely fast, okay? Let's go on to the second stone in the path to prosperity. So this next stone, okay, and the path to prosperity. So now we talked about the wantrepreneurs, okay? Now let's say you've got your offer, you got your marketing, you got your sales. Okay, so what's next? Congratulations, you have just become a solopreneur, right? A solopreneur is somebody who's starting to make some sales. They're starting to get awareness with their business, right? They're really starting to understand, wow, I would love to have, in my case, what I teach my students how to do is to create digital products. Man, my digital products are out there like selling even whenever I'm asleep, and I'm making money even while I sleep. I don't have to trade my time for my dollar anymore. I'm making 6 figures now, multiple 6 figures. This is awesome. But at the solopreneur part in the path to prosperity, chances are, you're still kind of wearing a lot of the hats. You're doing the putting together the offer. You are creating the digital products. You are marketing. You are selling, right? You are doing spreadsheets and customer service and stuff. And that's okay. All of us need to start there. But here's the cool part. In this next stone in the path, okay? Now is when you can level up. Watch this, okay? As a solopreneur, this is where you can go from 100K. Oops, let me do that over. This is where you can go from 100K in your business to $1 million. Okay? This is where you can go from 6-figure into 7-figure. Okay, this is where you go from like, I'm wearing all the hats, I'm doing all the stuff, I'm hustling. I'm making some decent money, but man, it's starting to kind of wear me out because stuff is growing so quickly, right? What you want to do is you want to do these next steps on this stone in the path to success. Let's check it out. Okay, so how are we going to go from 100K to $1 million? Okay, I call this the focus on the 1, 1, 1. What is the 1, 1, 1? Okay, the 1, 1, 1 is one offer to one market and one sales process. Okay? So a lot of times when people are leveling up in business and they're ready to scale from 6 figures to 7, they think, oh man, maybe I should just create a new product. Maybe I should do something new. Maybe I should start a new business. This is the problem that I had when I was first starting out in business. You know, I would hear like, you know, millionaires have 7 streams of income. So my thought process was, well, man, I got to probably start 7 businesses, right? So I would go start a new business and I'd start this other business. And I was sitting there scratching my head like, okay, I have whatever at the time, like 3 or 4 businesses and they're all doing kind of okay, but none of them are really taking off. I wonder why. It's because I didn't focus on the 1-1-1. I didn't just focus on, okay, now that I have a proven offer, right? And my marketing is proven and my sales profit process is proven. Now all I got to do is I have to take that one thing and I have to just push the gas on it. What got me to 6 figures, if I want to get to 7, now what I need to do is I really need to streamline and really start leveraging my time. So I'm not wearing all the hats, like I'm the salesperson, I'm the customer service, I'm the marketing, I'm the only guy, I'm the only gal in my business. Now what you can do is take a little bit of the profits that you're starting to make from the wantrepreneur stone of the path of prosperity and say, okay, I'm going to take this some of the profits and I'm going to hire somebody who can take all the customer service off my plate, guys. And then I'm going to hire somebody who can maybe do my social media, right? And take that off my plate. So now guess what happens? You start getting your time back. You start leveraging your time by growing your team. And now you can continue to focus on one offer, right? One product or service, one market and one process. And now instead of you going, man, this is too much, I'm like really killing myself, sending emails and doing all this stuff, leverage your time and say, okay, this works. We have a proven strategy. Now what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna push the gas on this and we are going to scale. And instead of me trying to put in like an hour over here with customer service, maybe in the morning and then an hour of customer service in the evening, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in charge of all the customer service 24 hours a day or 8 hours a day, right? Whatever it is. And then you over here, let's take my example earlier, social media. Instead of me having to like do all the social media all the time and talk to people and, you know, make new connections, and I'm trying to put an hour here, an hour there. Now your full-time job is going to be, you're the social media person, right? You're going to put 8 hours or more into social media. So now you got your time back. So guess what you can do? Now you can start pushing. Now you can start leveraging. Now you can focus on, okay, it's a proven system. It's a proven offer. It's a proven process. Let me just leverage by building the team slowly to start pushing the gas. So instead of me getting worn out, right? Because every single one of us only have 24 hours in a day. And if you're doing all the sales, all the marketing, all the customer service, all the social media, every single thing yourself, right? You've got to leverage so that way you can start scaling. And guys, I'm telling you right now, when you begin to focus on the 1-1-1, you will literally go from 6 figures to 7 quicker than you could ever imagine. I'm telling you, like I said at the beginning of today's training, building wealth has less to do with how do I actually build wealth, and it has more to do with your perception of how wealth is created, okay? One of the best ways to create wealth is to obviously have a business, like I said, but number 2 is to begin to leverage your time by starting to focus on the 1-1-1, getting your team out there and starting to crush it. This way, you can get all of your capacity. I think that's the best word. You can get all your capacity back to do the thing that you have superpowers to do. Maybe your superpower is to actually do the training. Maybe your superpower is to do the marketing. Maybe your superpower is to run the social media. Whatever it is, if you are beginning to leverage, right, now you can get all your capacity back and push even harder. And then whenever more comes in, you put it on the team and you begin to scale, okay? Let's go to the 3rd stone in the path to prosperity. All right, congratulations. So now you have done 7 figures in your business. Woohoo! Now you're not just a wantrepreneur, you're not just a solopreneur. Now you're a true-blooded entrepreneur. You left your job a long time ago, right? And now you are working on getting from 7 figures to 8 figures. Now you want to learn how to go from $1 million to 10 million, okay? Now, here's the thing. What I always tell my students is this, okay? At this level, whenever you're like, you've got some wherewithal, the volume is starting to grow, your skills are growing, right? You're not just like scared of trying to sell something. You're not just trying to figure out how to get attention to your product, your service, your offer. Now you really got some experience under your belt. And honestly, if you follow this path, many people, even my students, they get to this level literally within 1 to 2 years if you just stick with what I'm laying out for you. Okay? Building wealth, I'm telling you, building wealth is simple. Have you ever heard the phrase like, you got to work hard for your money? My question to you is like, do you? Like, I'm a firm believer. I don't want to work hard for my money. I want my money to work hard for me. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to work smart for my money. And that's what the third stone in the path to prosperity is all about on the entrepreneur level. Okay, let's break it down here on the board. So if you want to scale up from 7 to 8 figures, there are 3 things you have to focus on, okay? You've got to focus on systems. You have to focus on software. And you really want to start focusing on growing your staff, okay? See, many business owners who want to achieve their dream, their God-given dream, God, you put this thing in my heart, I want to do it. Number 1, many people are not even willing to start business. But number 2, those guys and gals who are doing business, and maybe you've come along the first few steps in the path to prosperity, a lot of people have a hard time scaling up to the next level, going from $1 million to 10 million. Okay, why do they do this? Because too many entrepreneurs still want to, remember we talked about on the first couple of steps, you're wearing a lot of the hats, right? You are the marketing, you are the PR, you are social media, you are customer service. And even though you're scaling up to the solopreneur level and you're like, okay, we're doing 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, many entrepreneurs get stuck at this place. They never crack, over $1 million because they don't want to give up control to their staff member, or they don't want to rely on a software, right? Or they don't want to put certain systems in place. Guys, I'll be honest with you. This was me just 6 years ago. When I was starting out in business, I got to the solopreneur level pretty quickly. We got to multiple 6 figures very quickly because I had an offer, I was marketing, I was selling, right? And then I focused on the 1-1-1 and we were starting to grow. But because at the time I didn't have a business coach, I didn't have a business mentor, no one was showing me how to scale, I was stuck. And I was like, man, how do I get to the next level? And it wasn't until I hired a business coach, a business mentor, and the first thing they told me was like, look, you are doing way too much. You are still working in the business and you're not working on the business. And I was like, so how do I get out from working in the business? And they said, you need systems, you need softwares, and you need to grow your staff. Now, I'll be honest with you, if I can be vulnerable with you, right? Every single one of us who are starting to build and starting to grow, we're on our way to scaling. There's a certain point where we have got to be willing to kind of give up control and grow ourselves in the place of leadership by saying, okay, I'm going to put a lot of these things that I feel like really rely on me. I'm going to put them on my people. I'm going to put them on my softwares. I'm going to put them on my systems. I always tell my students this, when it comes to leadership, and in our case today, in the context of growing your business, scaling to $1 million plus, and finally getting to the place of prosperity by walking down this path I'm laying out for you today. I always tell my students this, good leaders are always willing to go slower in the beginning so that they can go faster in the end. What does that mean? When you get to this place in your business, when you get to this place in the path to prosperity, you are going to have to be willing to give certain responsibilities over. And here's the punchline. Yes, you can do it at 100%, but what if you were to give the 100% load to 2 people who both could do 75% as good as you? Well, okay, this guy, he's only doing 75% as good as you, or this gal's only doing 75% as good as you, but combined together, now you are actually leveraging at a much higher level, because not only is it 100%, but now they're giving, what is that, 150%. Now you're getting 150% by being willing to go slower by, okay, he's not going to do it perfect, she's not going to do it perfect, but they're both going to do it good enough. And with the good enough, I'm going to be willing to go slower in the beginning by training them, equipping them, helping them as they're growing, right? And spending time getting them ready, right? And if I can go slower by releasing this responsibility to my team, or entrusting, like, man, I really love to personally write all the emails. Well, what if you could entrust that to a software, right? Like, what if you could entrust that to a system? Like, man, I always do it this way. And somebody comes in and goes, well, hey, if we did it this way, the system's maybe a little different than what you're used to, but the system will do X, Y, Z, and now you get all your time back, right? So for me, 6 years ago, when we were starting to hit this place, I was like, I can bring on a staff person, I can bring on a social media person. We were starting to make a little bit of money, but how in the world? And it wasn't until I understood, if you're willing to go slower in the beginning with systems, learning softwares, and hiring more and correct staff to train them, to release it, to figure the thing out, if you're willing to go slower in the beginning in that part of the process, it will actually enable you to be able to go faster in the end. Meaning, because you've leveraged your responsibilities to staff, systems, and software, now you get your time back. And again, the same thing that you did to leverage up to this point, right? To grow to this point, because you have your superpower and you can focus on your superpower. Now you can do it again, but at a much larger scale. Friends, I'm telling you right now, very, very few people make it to the entrepreneur level, but you can if you begin to implement systems, softwares, and staff. Let's come to the board and look at this next step in the path to prosperity. Okay, so now you are rocking and rolling. You are cranking. You're a millionaire now. Mom, look, I can't believe we actually did it. Okay? Our business makes millions of dollars every year. And now it's time to go to the next level. Okay, so it's no longer entrepreneur, it's no longer solopreneur. And now you're not just an entrepreneur. Now you're becoming a wealthpreneur. Okay? So in the wealthpreneur step, this is where you can go from 10 million. Where you can go from 10 million to hundreds of millions and beyond. Those are plus signs, okay? So how in the world, now look at this, let's recap here, okay? I'm gonna turn my laser on here. Let's recap what we've been talking about, okay? I'm telling you right now, this whole idea, like, man, building wealth, it's super hard. Friends, I'm literally laying out the path to prosperity for you. Okay, you might be here right now, just, man, I don't know how to get there. Here's how you get there. Step number one, you put together your offer, you get good at marketing, and you start selling to people. This will get you from 0 to 100K. Step number two, you're gonna focus on the 1-1-1, one offer to one market with one process, okay? This is gonna get you from 100K to $1 million in your business, and you're gonna go from entrepreneur to solopreneur, and now to entrepreneur, where you focus on systems, softwares, and growing your staff. This is where you can really start scaling up, and you can go from 7 figures to 8 figures in your business. Well, now here we are at the wealthpreneur level. And I don't know if you guys notice this or not, but look at the smile on his face, man. Why is he so happy? Because he's finally made it to the place of prosperity. So here's the thing, guys. In the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 32, okay, there's a scripture, and it uses war language, which is fine, but the principle itself applies to any context that you plug it into. And the Bible says this, Deuteronomy 32:30, it says, 1 can send 1,000 to flight, but 2 can send 10,000 to flight, okay? So check this out. Let's come back here to the board. How in the world do you become a wealthpreneur? We just recapped all this stuff, okay? You are, you've got all of this stuff in place. You've scaled. You've become a millionaire at this point. You've got your systems and softwares. So how do we take it to a whole different level? How do we leverage? How do we scale up? I'll tell you right now. And actually, I would put strategic partnerships, okay? With this being said, let me ask you another question here on the next page, okay? Would you rather have, this right here is a grape. Would you rather have a whole grape, or would you rather have, let's see if I can do this here. Would you rather have half of a watermelon? Okay, so this is a watermelon. Here's some seeds, okay? Again, I'm gonna ask you the question. Would you rather have a whole grape or half of a watermelon, okay? Why am I asking this question? Because here's what most entrepreneurs do, okay? Most entrepreneurs, especially whenever they scale up and they start making millions, but they just can't break past that 8 figures, a lot of times entrepreneurs, they don't want to form strategic partnerships. But do you remember what Deuteronomy says? 1 sends 1,000 to flight, 2 sends 10,000 to flight, okay? So what is the math on partnership? I'm glad you asked, let's check it out. Okay, so what's the math on partnership? Okay, so if I can send 1,000 a flight, okay, but 2 can send 10,000 to flight, guess what that means? Just by having the synergy of a strategic partnership, by myself, I would have only been able to do 1,000. But with the strategic partnership, we both can do 5,000, right? 1 sends 1,000, 2 sends 10,000. So literally, if I'm trying to do it on my own, I'm only at 1,000. But if I have a partner, so we both 5x our individual potential. That's why I'm asking you, would you rather have a whole grape, because the whole grape, by the way, is this, or would you rather have half of a watermelon, which is this? So when it comes to the path of prosperity, okay, when it comes to building wealth, how do we go from here to here? My friend, I'm telling you right now, like I said at the beginning of the video, when it comes to building wealth, the process is actually much more simple than you actually realize. It actually comes down to your perception of how wealth is built. And I'm telling you right now, if you begin to take a walk on these stones, on the path to prosperity, you are going to go from where you are now to where you want to be. Friends, this is the painless path to prosperity. I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever wondered why so many people seem to be stuck in patterns of poverty and cycles of scarcity while others are able to activate abundance? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the #1 way to break out of just surviving and getting on to the fast track of thriving. Now, as we explore this training together, I want to invite you to share your questions as they arise in the comments as we discover the power and purpose of generosity together. Let's come over here to the board and check it out. Okay, so before we can step into generosity, we need to get to the root, okay? And the root of whether you move in generosity or you move in poverty is really the mindset. So let's look at these different mindsets, okay? Are you walking in a poverty mentality or an abundance mentality, okay? So let's look at the differences here. So what's a poverty mentality? Let's look at a couple examples, okay? A poverty mentality is a fear to give because you have a need, okay? Have you ever felt that way? Oh, I don't want to give because, I have so much, I have to have bills I got to pay and I got so much stuff I got to do. Like I can't afford to give, right? That's a poverty mentality. What's an abundance mentality? An abundance mentality is this. Oops. Abundance mentality is joy to give because you see a need. You know if you're operating in a poverty mentality or an abundance mentality if you can take a really honest look, introspective look at your own heart and say, man, am I scared to give because I have too much that I need to pay for, or I have too many bills, or there may not be enough? That's a poverty mentality, right? Scarcity mentality. But an abundance mentality says, wow, that person has a need. I would love to give to that. And you're not considering, holding back. Like, well, I got so many bills and I don't know if I can afford to give. The abundance mentality understands that there's more than enough for you and I to both have more than enough. And afterward, there will still be more than enough left over. If you're plugged into God's kingdom, if you're a son or a daughter of God, that's how your reality will function. But it won't function like that if your mentality is off, if you're trying to hoard back and hold back, like I can't afford to give, it's too much to give, or I don't want to be a big tipper, or I don't want to help somebody, like I have my own needs, right? It's a poverty mentality, scarcity mentality, and I would even go as far as saying it's an orphan mentality, right? Orphans, they're always hoping that there's enough, right? And sons and daughters know that there's more than enough, right? I have a friend named Heidi Baker. Her and her husband run an incredible missions organization over in Mozambique. And Heidi was talking to me about this very concept one time before. And she said, it's always interesting to see the orphans come into our ecosystem, into the home, because when the orphans first come in, who haven't understood the power of adoption yet, right? They're operating under that old mindset. The orphans are always like, sticking extra rolls in their jacket, they're sneaking things. They're stealing this and that. Where the sons and daughters, those who have been adopted, those who are like, I've been adopted, I know how this works now. They're not sneaking or trying to hoard anything. They're like, I can just go to the fridge anytime I want. If I want a bread roll, I'll just take one, I'll just eat one. Or if I want, an apple, I'll just go grab one from the fridge. Like it's, the mindset is completely different. And if you're operating in that scarcity, I got to hoard it back. Like, I don't know if there's going to be enough tomorrow, so let me put another one in my jacket pocket. That is a poverty orphan mentality. And God wants us to step into a generous, abundant mentality. Let's come back here to the board and let's check out a couple more examples, okay? Okay, so let's look at another example here. Here's another way you can notice if you're operating in a poverty mentality. Poverty mentality, it's all about scarcity. What does that mean? Scarcity is like, oh, I hope there's going to be enough. I don't know if there's going to be enough. I don't know if we're going to have enough left over. Like, we better just hold it all back. We better just save whatever we can, because what if there's not enough for tomorrow, right? That's a poverty mentality, right? But an abundance mentality, you're all about abundance. How do you spell abundance? It's abundance, right? It's like there's more than enough, like I just said earlier, more than enough for me and you to have more than enough, and afterward there'll be more than enough left over. In fact, I want to share this example with you. When it comes to an abundance mindset, you have to think in these terms, okay? Here's one of many, many examples. But when you are to take in a deep breath, just do it with me, right? Like when you take in a deep breath, does it lessen the oxygen that I am able to breathe because you took in a super deep breath? Like this is how most people think when it comes to their finances, when it comes to their provision, when it comes to their prosperity. They're living in scarcity and lack, right? And poverty mindset, thinking like, man, I don't, if you take in too deep of a breath, there's not gonna be enough breath left over for me to take. And as silly as that sounds, that's what most people do when it comes to their financial mindset, right? Like, oh man, I don't want to give because if I give, like, what if we don't have enough left over, right? Or I don't want to go for it. I don't want to invest into myself because if I do, what if it doesn't work, right? Well, that's a poverty mentality. The same way that when you take in a deep breath, it doesn't lessen any amount of oxygen that I can take in, is the same exact way that an abundant mentality or a generous mentality works. Okay, so before we can even step into like, how do I break out of just surviving and how do I get on the fast track to thriving, I'm telling you right now, the number one way to break out of a poverty mentality. You can't save your way out of a poverty mentality. A lot of people, especially Christians, think that they can pray their way out of a poverty mentality. Prayer's good and you should pray. But I have found over 20 years of dealing with this in my own life in the past, some of my closest friends, I've helped them work through poverty mentalities, and then even helping hundreds and even thousands of students around the world. I have found the number one way for a person to break out of a poverty or lack or scarcity mindset is to give your way out of it. Now, I know that that concept might sound a little backwards to you, like, wait, I'm supposed to give my way out of a poverty or lack or scarcity mindset. How does that work? I'm telling you right now, friends, one of the biggest reasons that I despise a poverty or lack mentality is because any time that you say things like, I can't afford it, or I would love to give, but we don't have enough, or that thing is too expensive. Anytime you make those kind of statements or have those kind of thoughts, one of the main reasons why I despise the poverty mentality and the scarcity mentality is because when you think or when you speak those limiting beliefs, you give them power over yourself. I'm here to let you know that nothing is bigger than your God-given potential. God has put an incredible potential on the inside of you, and it is much bigger than, I can't afford to give, I can't afford to be generous, or that thing is too expensive. Listen, the thing that you can't afford is you can't afford to think thoughts or to speak words that you can't afford something. Remember I said earlier in the video, the patterns of poverty, right? Every single one of us have grown up under the programming of a poverty mentality. Think about this, right? Like maybe your parents have instilled in you. Like here's one example. Like maybe you go out to eat, right? Whenever you're a kid, and maybe you had like 3 French fries left over or whatever it is. Like, oh, you better save those fries, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Or saying statements like that. Friends, I'm telling you right now, the people who have come up with these kind of limited belief, poverty mindset thinking terms like, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? Time is money, time is money. Friends, time is infinitely more valuable than money. Or what about the lie that we've been programmed with that says you need to go to school, and then so you can go to college, so you can get a good job, so that you can pay for your school. It's this continual cycle of poverty. It's this cycle of scarcity that the culture, society, the movies we watch, the churches we go to, the communities we grow up in are all speaking this same poverty, scarcity language. And friends, I want to encourage you, in order to break free from all of this, you got to change your thinking, number one, right? But number two, you've got to give your way out of it. As soon as you start feeling like, oh man, I would love to give, I just can't afford it, that's especially when you should give. Oh man, I would love to give $100. And man, this person, I'd love to buy somebody groceries. Go out and buy them groceries. Well, what if I don't have enough for my own groceries? That's a scarcity mentality, right? Now, here in a few moments, I'm going to get to how we can work our way up, because honestly, generosity and abundant thinking, they are muscles that you need to develop over time. And there's a specific way and process that you can do this. I'm going to give them to you here in just a moment. A number of years back, when I started my very first business, okay, I was working hard. We were starting to get a little bit of success. And unfortunately, somebody very close to me at the time, they went ahead and stole a bunch of money and a bunch of clients. And honestly, it brought us down almost to zero. Okay, this was just under 10 years ago, right? Not very long ago. And when I found everything out, of course I was shocked. I forgave the person. I did need to separate myself from them, but you know, I forgave them. But I was shocked and we were devastated. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do, right? And I remember checking our bank account and total money that we had at the time. Again, this was like 7-8 years ago, not very long ago. The total money that we had, total, every single penny to our name, was $3,000. That's with savings and business and our checking. We only had $3,000, okay? And so I knew that, man, our bills coming up the next month are way more than this. And instantly, I don't know if you've been there, or maybe you can imagine, you know, the feeling of, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? How am I gonna pay my bills? All of that was real, all of that was there. Until I began to think about this, I began to pray about this, and to my surprise, right as I was struggling through and praying through and thinking about what are we gonna do, a friend of mine calls me up and they ask me a very interesting question. They call me up and they're a little distressed when they're on the phone, and they say, hey, I know this is really out of the blue and I'm so sorry and I'm so embarrassed to ask this, but is there any way that you can loan me $3,000? And in that moment, my heart dropped, because like I just said, all we had was $3,000. That was it. That was total, because somebody had just stolen everything from me, right? Everything, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. But here's the punchline. I understood, okay, God's hand is probably in this unfolding story somewhere. I believe that God may be testing my mindset and my heart and my faith to understand, am I going to shrink back in scarcity and in poverty, or am I going to step into abundance, right? Am I going to believe that even though somebody had just stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from me, even though we only have $3,000 total and we're not even able to pay next month's bills, am I going to shrink back into that orphan mentality, into that scarcity mentality, or am I going to step in to my God-given right to abundance as a son or a daughter of God, who believes that even though everything's looking crazy right now, I am still going to trust that generosity is the way. Funny enough, I told my wife, and she obviously already knew that, you know, somebody had just stolen from us, and we were, you know, really shook and devastated, and we're down really, really low in our finances at the time. And I said, well, and I told her about the buddy who called me up and said, hey, can I borrow $3,000? I said, I don't know if it's a coincidence. We only have $3,000 and they are asking for $3,000. What do you think? And my wife, she is so incredible. She is the most generous person I know. Linz, if you're watching, I love you. Anyways, she goes, let's give it to him. And I looked at her, you know, I'm a man of faith, right? And I said, what? Are you kidding me? Like, we would have nothing left over. I was shrinking back into the scarcity mentality, into the poverty mentality. I want to hold on to this because what if there's not enough, right? And I was terrified. I was scared. I was scared to give because I had needs, right? That's the poverty mentality. But my wife, with the generous and the abundant mentality, she was joyful to give because she saw a need, right? And she's like, we should give it to him. And I was like, you know what? Why not? I feel like there's some kind of connection here. I feel like God is trying to teach us something. So you know what we did? We not only did we not loan the money to our friend, but we said, you know what? We don't want this to be a loan. We want this to be a gift. Now, mind you, the whole time, this person had no clue what had just happened to us. right? This person had no idea that somebody close to us had stolen tons of money. We were down to our last $3,000, and then they call us up and ask if they can borrow $3,000. I mean, if that's not God's hand moving, I don't know what is. Not only did we not loan it to them, but we said, listen, we don't want this to be a loan. We don't want you to be indebted to us. We want to give this to you as a gift. And they were like, what? They couldn't believe it, right? They were like, you're kidding me, a gift? Like, I'll totally pay you back. We're like, no. We want to give this. We want to be generous. We want to give because you have a need. And they were like, wow, they were crying, oh, thank you so much. And we were crying, you're welcome so much. My wife was crying because she was happy. I was crying because I was halfway happy and I was halfway terrified even more, right? Like, you're welcome. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Now, here's the punchline to the story. Not just 2 weeks after that we had given this gift to our friends that were trying to borrow this money, and we just gave it to them as a gift, $3,000. It wasn't 2 weeks later that I had this crazy idea. Looking back now, I know it was God. I had this crazy idea. We ran this one play in our business, and in that month, we made $300,000 in our business that month. Now, I don't know about you, but that is incredible because the Bible says some will reap 30-fold, some will reap 60-fold, and some will reap 100-fold, right? So literally that same month, if we would have shrank back, I really believe this, if we would have shrank back into scarcity and poverty mentality and orphan mentality, stuffing those, the extra apples in our jacket, we don't know what we're going to do next, right? If we would have moved into that mindset, into that perspective, I truly believe that we would not have been able to unlock the blessings, right? The abundance that God had for us on the other side of our generosity. And if there was one thing that I learned through this story, it was this. You can count how many seeds are in one apple, but you cannot count how many apples are in just one seed. Check out this scripture verse, Luke chapter 6, verse 38, okay? This is a scripture. A lot of people know about this scripture. People talk about it quite a bit. But I really want to highlight something on the second part of this verse. Let's look at the verse together. Luke chapter 6, verse 38, it says this, give, and it will be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Now, a lot of people stop there, right? But let's look at the second part of this verse. The second part of this verse says, for with the measure you give, or with the measure that you use, it will be measured back unto you. Now, what does that mean? Come with me here to the board, and I want to break something down for you, okay? Now, like I was saying earlier, okay, the Bible does say that some will reap 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold. Now, watch this. Luke 6:38 says, with the measure that you give will be the measure that you receive. So let's say, this is a spoon, okay? Let's say that you were like, you know what? I want to be so generous, I am going to sow a spoonful of whatever it is. I'm going to sow a spoonful of resources, right? I'm sowing it. I'm going to sow, let's just say you're sowing into a field, right? And you're saying, okay, I'm going to take this spoon in my pocket and I'm going to sow a spoonful of my resources, of my time, of my money, right? I'm going to be generous by sowing this spoonful worth of seed into the soil, okay? Now, here's what I believe, just because that's what the Bible says. Now, when you do that, everyone's going to receive. Some will receive 30, 60, and some will receive 100-fold in return. Okay, so you sowed this with a spoonful, and maybe, you harvest back that. Okay, but remember, Luke 6:38 said, with the measure that you give will be the measure that you receive. So maybe this person over here sows with the spoonful, but watch this. What if this person says, I'm also going to give, uh-oh, the board's glitching out here. What if this person says, I want to give not just a spoonful, I want to give a barrel full. Those are seeds, okay? I want to sow a barrel full of seeds. Now, watch this. Now, both of them gave, right? This person gave here, and this person wants to give here. But the punchline is this. Luke 6:38 says, with the measure that you give will be the measure you receive. Okay, so watch this. The spoonful who sowed this seed into the soil, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's buying someone groceries, maybe it's your church, whatever it is, right? But then watch, this person sowed all of these seeds into the soil, and here's the punchline. Both of these people in this example, I believe, will reap 30, 60, or 100-fold return. But just like the spoonful, remember this measure? 30, 60, and 100-fold return on a spoonful measure is much, much different than 30, 60, and 100-fold return that was measured by a barrel, right? And on and on and on and on. So here's the punchline. Maybe the reason why you're still in the poverty programming, in the patterns of poverty, maybe the reason why you're still in the cycles of scarcity is because you're only giving with a small measure, right? Now, this is still good. This is still giving, but this measure right here will only produce these kinds of harvests. This measure, which is much larger, will produce these kinds of harvests. Are you tracking with me? If you're tracking with me, just drop it in the comments. Say, I'm tracking, I'm tracking, I'm tracking, I'm tracking. So the punchline is this. In order for you to begin to elevate your mindset out of scarcity, out of lack, out of poverty thinking, out of orphan mentality, I don't know if I'm ever going to have enough, right? You must begin to give your way out of that mentality. Now, there are some examples I'm going to get to here in just a moment, but you've really got to begin to make war over that mentality, because the punchline is this. If you have the mentality, chances are that mentality was passed on from your parents, or it was passed on from their parents to them, and now is being passed on to you. Do you want your children, do you want your children's children to go through life always scared and fearful? I don't want to be generous. I don't want to give. I wish I could. Man, if only I had more money. Generosity has nothing to do with how much money you do or don't have. It has everything to do with your mindset, with the lens that you look through. And that's either going to be a lens of abundance, or it's going to be a lens of poverty, a lens of scarcity. I learned this many times, obviously, throughout my life, but especially in that story that I told you, where we were down to our last $3,000 and we gave it. Like, could you imagine if we chose to just shrink back in scarcity? Like, who knows what would have happened, right? I probably wouldn't have had that cool idea to make $300K that month, right? This is how God works. And if you're tired of just getting by, just surviving, right? If you're tired of just thriving to just survive and hopefully one day, like, man, it'd be so nice. Guess what you got to do? You've got to start giving. You've got to start challenging yourself, right? Everyone starts with the spoon, right? And by the way, it's not the size of the gift. It's not the amount of money. It's the size of the heart. It's the amount of the heart when it comes to generosity. Okay, so everyone starts with the spoon, but over time, you can work your way up to putting in a barrel's worth of your heart. a barrel's worth of your intention. And of course, over time, a barrel's worth of your money, right? Check out this next scripture. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 7. Okay, it says this. But since you excel in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in complete earnestness, and in the love we have kindled in you, this was the Apostle Paul talking, okay? He goes on to say this, see that you also excel in the grace of giving. Now I want you to consider something here, okay? A lot of people think, like I'm telling you today, a lot of people think, man, I could be more generous if I just had more money. This is not the case. Even Paul the Apostle is telling us here, the way that you can be generous, it's a grace that you can grow into, okay? But the punchline is this, you're never going to grow into the grace of giving or the grace of generosity or the grace of abundance if you never start. You've got to start somewhere. Maybe you're starting with a spoon, but you've got to start somewhere, all right? You have to start somewhere. You've got to give your way out of this poverty, scarcity, lack mentality. Now, that might be to a loved one. That might be to somebody who has a need. That might be buying somebody groceries. It might be to your church. Wherever it is, I want to challenge you to push yourself so that you can stop being stuck in those patterns of poverty and those cycles of scarcity, and you can begin to activate abundance. Considering 2 Corinthians chapter 8, come with me back here to the board. I want to show you a little bit how the grace of giving works. Watch this. So giving is a lot like everything else in life, okay? Let's say this is you, okay? And unfortunately, this person, they're real scrawny, okay? Now here's the thing. Let me help paint the picture a little bit better, okay? This person is at the gym, okay? And this person, you know, they're here at the gym because they want to get more muscles, right? They want to get bigger and they want to get stronger. But unfortunately, just like every single one of us, when they get to the gym, they're kind of a little scrawny, you know, I don't have many muscles here, don't have a six-pack yet, right? Whatever it is. And so guess what this person's going to have to do? Let's just say it's a, let's just say this is a kettlebell, okay? And the person's like, okay, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to lift this kettlebell, and the kettlebell is 5 pounds, okay? Now, could you imagine if the person went into the gym and they were like, man, I really want to get strong. I really want to grow my muscles, right? I really want to be buff. I want to go for it, right? And I want to get in shape. Could you imagine if the person went in and they didn't start at the 5 pound kettlebell? What would happen? Watch this. What would happen if the person started with the 500 pound kettlebell? Okay? Now, not only would the person probably hurt themselves, okay, but their face would probably also look like this, right? And here's the punchline. Like, no one is going to get, you know, big and strong by starting at this level, right? Everyone has to start here, and over time, this is how life works. You guys and gals know this, okay? Over time, after you practice, after you're going for it, okay? After you get the 5 pounds, then you work your way up to the 10 pounds. And after the 10 pound, you work your way up to the 20 pound, right? And then after the 20 pounds, you work your way up to the 50 and on and on and on and on. And before you know it, you go from not being able to lift anything, you're kind of a little scrawny or whatever it is. Now, because you went through the process, guess what happens? Oops. Now, let's see if I can do this. Y'all are going to laugh. Watch this. Now, yeah, you can have these awesome muscles. Now, these aren't just little hoops. Those are awesome muscles. And now you have this really awesome six-pack. Yeah, of course he's wearing shorts, or, you know, it's a he. Of course, he's wearing shorts. Yeah, I'm buff now. Watch, he even has calf muscles. Woohoo, right? And he's like super, super happy now. Why? Because this person didn't try to start at the 500-pound level. What did they do? He embraced the process of starting where he was and then working his way up, okay? The same thing goes for you as you grow in the grace of giving, okay? Don't just try to like say, well, you know, I watched that training with Rick and Rick said I got to give my way out. So here's my whole entire paycheck tomorrow. I've never given a dime in my life, right? I've never helped anybody else before, but here's my whole entire paycheck. Like, I am not suggesting you do that, right? I am suggesting that you begin to stretch yourself. And maybe for you, giving $10 is a lot. Helping somebody, buying somebody's coffee is a lot, right? Even though it's only $5 or $6, maybe that's a lot for you, right? You've got to start where you are now, and you have to grow in the grace of giving. Because like Paul the Apostle said, look, you might be doing awesome in speech and in knowledge and earnestness. You might be an incredible person who just loves, but I want to submit something to you. I truly believe, and we saw this in John 3:16, I truly believe that you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. And Paul the Apostle said, though you're flourishing in speech and knowledge and earnestness and in love, he also encourages, by the way, make sure that as you flourish in every other area, you must make sure that you are pressing in to flourish in the grace of giving. So here's my encouragement to you. Stop allowing the scarcity, poverty, orphan mentality to continue allowing you to believe that I can't afford it, or we don't have enough, or I wish I could give if only I had more money. Stop allowing those mindsets to have power over you, and stop giving them permission to be bigger than your God-given potential. Stop doing that and start connecting in to the velocity that comes from generosity.